Well, after a bit of a hiatus, I'm happy to say I'm back here with the classic pay-per-view review, and this week's episode's a doozy, folks. This show is considered by many to be the last great pay-per-view WCW ever did. We'll see how well that statement holds up. I'm talking about Spring Stampede 1999 from April 11th at the Tacoma Dome in Tacoma, Washington. This show was nominated by Jake Haynes over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. So what's been going on creatively with WCW as of late? Well, of course, the top babyface at the time, going into Uncensored, the previous pay-per-view, was Ric Flair. He was the WCW president, but he was on borrowed time, and here he was fighting Hollywood Hogan in the barbed wire steel cage first blood match for the championship, where his presidency was also on the line, where if he won, he'd become president for life. And in that match, we saw a lot of bullshit chicanery here. You saw Flair easily, obviously bleeding first, but referee Charles Robinson, Little Nate, he's in the pocket of the president, so he didn't make that call to give Hogan the match, and ultimately Flair ends up winning that match under dubious circumstances and overnight becomes a heel again. Was it the plan going into it? Who knows? But Flair, now that he's the champion and president for life, immediately becomes drunk with power. Like, not even a week passes before he starts doing heelish stuff on the programming, and it's affecting a lot of storylines that you see throughout this pay-per-view. Meanwhile, the NWO Wolfpack Elite Super Deluxe Mega Edition that formed after the Finger Poke of Doom, even that's starting to show fractures right now. And Hollywood Hogan, he was the heel in Uncensored. Going into Spring Stampede, though, he's kind of a babyface. We'll see how it pans out, how it plays out at the pay-per-view.
Whoa! Oh! Konnan, this doesn't count.
17,690 folks sell out the Tacoma Dome. 255,000 pay-per-view buys is down a little from the 275,000 last year. Tony Schiavone, Bobby Heenan, and Mike Tenay are on commentary tonight in the opening match, where the winner will face the winner of the Cruiserweight title match later tonight. On Nitro the following night, Blitzkrieg takes on Juventud Guerrera. Blitzkrieg coming out to the old Hollywood Blondes theme, which is very confusing to me. Blitzkrieg with some quick lucha moves on Juvi, kind of overshoots the tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. There is a nice cartwheel into the corner, though. Juvi with some offense, a springboard drop kick, follows up with a big dive. Juvi with the big surfboard, but Blitzkrieg with a cool little escape I'd never seen before. Blitzkrieg goes for a super flying nothing to the outside, but Juvi intercepts with a drop kick. Blitzkrieg with a beautiful springboard into a moonsault on the outside. Juvi tries some kind of reverse suplex, but loses control. They kind of tumble down. Then Juvi with a hellacious top rope Juvi driver to win the match. I give this opening contest 3.5 stars out of 5. I think it definitely accomplished its goal of getting the crowd excited here. I give it an extra half star for that finish, by the way. That Juvi driver looked ridiculous. A lot of fun spots here, a little clunky at times. I wish the match also went a little bit longer, but yeah, I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. Hardcore match up next as Bam Bam Bigelow takes on the former Sandman Hardcore Hack, who's accompanied by Raven's kayfabe sister Chastity. And what a weird time this is. This like ECW invasion of sorts in WCW programming, not by name certainly, but you had, Sandman at the show at the time, Mikey Whipwreck's in the very next match, Bam Bam Bigelow has some ECW history, big ECW influence like during this part of the show for sure. Really cool little gem. When you're watching the build for this show, go watch the Thunder before Spring Stampede. There's a match with Sandman or Hack versus Mikey Whipwreck, and it's a really good match. It starts off super boring and basic, like headlock takeovers, arm wrench stuff, like boring NWA style wrestling, and then just by the end it just ramps up into this wild weapons brawl ECW style, and the crowd is totally there for it. So go watch that match. It's a lot of fun. Speaking of fun, this match was definitely that from where I sat. It begins with Bam Bam showing up with the hamper full of weapons. The brawl begins on the stage. Hack pulling out a table from under the stagecoach buried in some hay. He climbs up to the top of the stagecoach, leaps off, and plummets through Bigelow through the table all in the first 2 minutes. Back near the ring, Bigelow grabs a crutch and whoops Hack with it. Chastity has unloaded all the weapons into the ring by now. Another table is set up outside as a bridge. There's a salad bowl attack. Heenan making fun of the rag sticking out of Hack's pants, calls it a hanky. A ladder has now entered the equation. Hack drop kicking it into Bam Bam. A senton into the ladder, followed by a bulldog. They set the table back up on the outside. Hack setting up some convoluted looking thing with the ladder, which allows him to be thrown through the table. That sure looks normal and natural. Hack goes for the leg drop, but Bigelow moves, so Hack gets nothing but rail. Chastity wants to use the fire extinguisher like she did on Nitro recently, but it doesn't work for some reason. Works for Bam Bam though. Greetings from Asbury Park, off the second rope onto Hack through a table. Bigelow with the cover and the win. I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars out of 5 as well. It wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but for a hardcore match, it was very entertaining. And talk about a great 1-2 punch way to open this pay-per-view. High-flying, exciting cruiserweight action one match, then the hardcore match, the wild spot off the stagecoach and everything the next. That was some pretty good booking. But then things slowed down with a bonus unadvertised match as another ECW alum, Mikey Whipwreck, takes on Scotty Riggs. Riggs has left the flock and now has a narcissist gimmick. He's better looking every day. When the hell did this happen? This is Mikey's third match in WCW, by the way, because he debuted the previous month at Uncensored against Kidman for the Cruiserweight title. Then he was off with injury for a while. He had that match with Hack on the Thunder before this show. Riggs with some offense early on, but Mikey fires back in a big way. Big leg drop on the bottom rope. There's a slingshot into a Hurricane Rana with a rough-looking landing. Riggs avoids the second leg drop and takes over. Very much a cocky, arrogant heel here. There's a boring chant as Riggs gets his heat, which is not totally inaccurate. Mikey begins to come back with a drop kick and a Russian leg sweep, but Riggs hits the big flying forearm out of nowhere to win. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This match was fine. It was well executed. It was competently done, but I just don't think it really belonged on this show. I think it was a match more fitting for like Saturday Night or for Thunder, perhaps. I don't think it was really, the fact that it was an unadvertised match, no heat to it, no story. Riggs hasn't even been on TV in weeks, as far as I could tell. And so the match just kind of came out of nowhere, and I guess they were just trying to cool the fans down for the next match. And it's coming up here as former Wolfpack member Konnan takes on current Wolfpack member Disco Inferno. Yes, that was a thing. And folks, this all started over a music video, because around this time, Konnan's big hit Bow Wow Wow, they were playing that music video on regular rotation on WCW programming, and Disco Inferno was sick of seeing it every week on TV, to the point where he released his own version of the music video one week on Nitro, where it's just him dancing in front of the screen, like on a green screen, dancing in front of the video, doing his own rapping to it, but just terribly done. He also dresses up on TV for a while in a Mil Mascarisque mask the last couple of weeks, calling himself La Cucaracha, but nobody buys it, and Konnan's literally just going, "It's Disco," under there. Before the match gets underway, Konnan calling Disco a strawberry. Disco with the early jump on K-Dog, even stealing Konnan's rolling clothesline. And like, Disco is just on fire for most of this match. He seemingly has an answer for everything Konnan does. Every time there's a hope spot or a comeback for Konnan, nope, Disco snuffs it out, and it just feels very uncharacteristic of Disco for what I could, in other matches I've seen of his, to the point where the announcers are even gobsmacked and can't stop talking about how dominant Disco is in this thing. He even takes a run into the ring post and then gets back in and is back on top. There's a second rope elbow drop that misses. Konnan makes a fiery comeback, hits his own rolling clothesline, the 187, Disco kicks out of that. Lots of bouncing off the ropes in this final sequence. Konnan hitting Disco with his own finisher to win the match finally. This one felt weird to watch. I'm not saying like Disco needs to be like how he gets beat up all the time. He worked hard in this match, and I'll give him that, but I think Konnan just gave him way too much. It was just like not fitting for the story they were telling in all the weeks of build up to this. And it was just like, yeah, too dominant for Disco. And I think that Konnan like just kind of looked weak in all this. So his comeback, I don't think, meant as much by the end. And maybe he was just doing this as a favor to his friend, you know, they're good friends and everything. So maybe he just really wanted to make him look good. But I think that almost worked to the detriment of the match. And holy shit, did they tell a different story between this match and Bash to the Beach 98 or what? Because in that one, it's a total squash. Kevin Nash powerbombs Disco and Konnan just gets an easy win on Disco Inferno. So very different story they told here. Up next, tag team champions and respectful rivals collide for singles gold. Turns out WrestleMania 21 was not the first time Ray battled a co-tag team champion on pay-per-view, as he defends the Cruiserweight Championship against Billy Kidman. Ray beat Kidman for the Cruiserweight title a couple of weeks ago, then kind of fell into the tag title hunt after pissing off Flair on the Spring Break Nitro. He asked Kidman to help him, and they beat Benoit and Malenko for the tag titles after an assist by Saturn and Raven. More on that in a minute. Good fast-paced lucha shit to start things off. Guns are blazing here. Heenan saying Cruiserweights enjoy doing hula cabanas. On the outside, Kidman with a slingshot leg drop over the barricade. A couple minutes later, Ray goes for a head scissors on the outside, but he smacks his head right into the edge of the ring steps, and you could tell it slows him down for a bit, but somehow he's okay, and somehow the match does not suffer that much. I love the guys in the crowd just yelling, "Powerbomb! Powerbomb!" A running Kidman with a running shooting star press off the apron. There's an amazing exchange between Tenay and Schiavone here.
Running moonsault off the ring apron onto Mysterio.
It's almost a running shooting star press the way he...
That's exactly what it was, a running shooting star press. I'm corrected, you're right.
Hey, I corrected today.
Mysterio Jr. intercepts a flying nothing with a drop kick. Ray with a top rope bulldog and a kick out. The match slows down a bit here, but Ray picks things back up with a wild dive to the outside. More great back and forth. Ray hits the big face buster he won the title with, but we get a kick out. Ray goes for the powerbomb, but we all know you don't powerbomb Kidman. Goes up top, but Ray crotches him. The Frankensteiner, the pin, and the win. I give it 4 stars out of 5. Hot dog, this was a great Cruiserweight matchup here. I thought it was much stronger than the opener, and for a couple of the reasons that I pointed out that I would have liked to see in the opener. I wanted to see it go a little longer, and I think it definitely told a more compelling back and forth story. Even taking, Ray's head bonk into account, it was a darn near perfect match. I mean, I think if you want to be really close and analytical to it, you can see that it does suffer a little bit because of Ray hitting his head, but they recover fairly well. I think that if you didn't notice the head bonk, you really wouldn't know that something like that had happened. So here's some background for this next matchup. On a recent Nitro, the spring break edition of Panama City Beach, Raven called out Ric Flair for a title shot, so Flair gives him a match by himself against the tag champions Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko. Perry Saturn shows up to help out for reasons that were never fully explained given their history. They end up costing the Horsemen the tag titles against Ray and Kidman, leading to this grudge match, Benoit Malenko versus Raven and Perry Saturn. Raven fitting right in there with the grunge crowd of the Pacific Northwest. And holy crap, look at Arn. Looks like he'd still go at any moment there. I never understood the bad rap that Raven's WWE theme got. Like, they play that for his matches in WCW on the network and on Peacock. And it wasn't really until watching this entrance that I realized, man, it doesn't fit him. Because I own WWF The Music Volume 5, the CD with Pie on it. His track is on there too. And I didn't have a problem with that theme song ever. And I didn't understand people's knock against it until here I was like, man, it just doesn't fit him. Like, it's really bad. The crowd is super hot for this thing before anyone even locks up. It's great. There's fast and furious action to start things off. Nice double team maneuvers by Raven and Perry. Raven gets dumped on the outside. Arn and Dean shit-can him. Referee Charles Robinson, as I mentioned earlier, he's aligned with the Nature Boy and his crew, so he's definitely letting some things slide for Benoit and Malenko throughout this thing. Raven and Saturn with a Doomsday crossbody. Perry goes for a DVD, but it gets broken up. Malenko gets the cloverleaf locked in. There's a rope break. The Death Valley driver connects. The pinfall is broken up by a Benoit diving headbutt. Double team offense by the former champs now. The sleeper is applied on Saturn as Raven does this babyface pump up in his corner. What a visual. Raven with the hot tag. He's a house of fire. A chair's entered the ring. Raven sets it up and hits Benoit with a drop toe hold. On the outside, Anderson pulling Malenko off a table and Saturn crashing through it. Even flow DDT and the cover. Anderson brings a chair into the ring, placing it on Raven's head and walks away. Benoit with a diving headbutt onto the chair. What the hell? Malenko crawls over to make the cover and the win. And boy, look at that visual there. Benoit busting himself open hard way and requiring stitches at the hospital. Yikes. That being said, I do give the match 4.5 stars. This is my favorite match of the night. Just great tag team wrestling on display here. Told the best story by far. I loved the physicality and the innovation. If you watch one match from this show, I think it should be this one. Well, way back at Super Brawl, Scott Hall beat Roddy Piper to become the U.S. champion, but he suffered a foot injury off TV for a while. So a few weeks before Spring Stampede, President Nature Boy stripped him of the belt and announced a tournament to crown a new U.S. champion. We're at the finals now as the television champion Booker T faces off the man he beat for that championship, Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. Steiner, of course, is a member of the Wolfpack, recently kicked Buff Bagwell out of the group once Bagwell cost him the TV championship. And look at all the shtick Steiner's getting himself into before the match even begins. He's letting a lady at the front row gently stroke his chest as he talks trash to her date. He's jaw-jacking with everybody here. Finally, the match begins. Steiner bringing Booker to the mat with his amateur background early on. The two just lay into each other. Booker diving off the apron to the outside onto Steiner at one point. Steiner going nuts in this match, using a chair on the outside. He pie faces the ref, gets right in the ref's face. This is all going unchecked, by the way. There's a big steroids chant as Scott continues the offense. A blatant trip to Dick Kick City, and Steiner feeling pretty invincible here. Booker hits a DDT and makes his comeback, but Steiner pulls the ref in between them and he's crushed. Booker has multiple chances to win, but the ref is still out. Booker picks him up. He gets smooshed again. The battle continues. Scott even hits a Frankensteiner, kind of a rare move at this point. Steiner controls the ref's count, but Booker still kicks out. Steiner with a foreign object, striking Booker with it mid-suplex, gets the ref back in the ring to make the count. Steiner wins and is the new U.S. champion after all that. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. The match was not their best encounter. We'd see them have a feud, throughout the ages, throughout TV Championship, US Championship, World Championship, as I've talked about before on this channel. But this was not their best encounter. It was a fine story in a bubble of, Steiner being crazy and everything. But it looked ridiculous. It made the referee look totally dumb how much he was able to put up with it, even though Steiner was intimidating him. In a way, this does protect Booker, but there was so much stuff happening that it was so ridiculous that I don't think it had a place in this matchup here. And it puts over how crazy Steiner is, but I think it was way too much of it here. And ultimately, Scott will get a back injury soon after winning the championship here, so the belt will be vacated once again, unfortunately. We cut to the web show with Bob Ryder and Mark Madden with Rey Mysterio Jr. as their special guest. Everyone looks awkwardly into the camera as they're practically inaudible on the pay-per-view broadcast. Up next, the big rematch from Starrcade 98 as Big Sexy Kevin Nash of the Wolfpack takes on Goldberg. Nash remains the only person in history to have beaten Goldberg in that controversial title match back in December. On an episode of Nitro, Goldberg was going to draw his next victim from a tumbler, but Kevin Nash volunteered himself instead. What a guy. Nash, Lex Luger, and Elizabeth come out together for this one. As the match begins, Nash gets on the mic, does a little Scott Hall tribute.
Hey, yo!
The action moves into the corner where Nash really thrives. Liz gets on the apron, the distraction allowing Nash to mule kick Goldberg in the yam bags. A small "We Want Sting" chant breaks out. Nash with a big side slam onto Goldberg in a 2 count. Goldberg dodges the boot, hits a big shoulder tackle, setting his comeback into motion, and the crowd is here for it. Goes to the spear, Nash leapfrogs it, then Goldberg spears the ref right in the dick. Luger hitting Goldberg with a chair, Nash going for the jackknife, but Goldberg locks in the testicular claw. He gets Luger out of the ring, spears Nash, hits the jackhammer, and Goldberg wins the rematch. I give it 3 stars out of 5. This match did defy my expectations. I thought it was a stronger match than Starrcade 98 with a much more satisfying finish. I think that it was a spectacle. The crowd dug it, so that really helps make things better, I think. And the story was okay, but how many crazy ref bumps and big cheating spots are we going to get through the course of this night? We have so many already, and more piled onto this one. Right after the Steiner Booker T match, felt like it was a bit much. In your main event for the WCW Championship, Ric Flair defends against Hollywood Hogan, Diamond Dallas Page, and the man called Sting. According to the storyline, it was originally going to be a one-on-one rematch with Flair and Hogan from Uncensored, but then as the weeks went on, they added DDP and Sting into the mix. And then finally on the Go Home episode, Sting was advertised to be there all night, advertised to do a special message. Ooh, well, whose side is he going to be on? Because he's not wearing the Wolfpack face paint anymore, he's the black and white now. So finally, Sting repels from the rafters in the Go Home Nitro. He shows up, he gets in the ring, he points to the giant screen, and you just hear Macho Man's disembodied voice saying, "Here's the match for Sunday. Also, I'm going to be the guest referee for reasons. Oh, yeah." Yes, that's right. This match is also known for the return of Randy Savage to TV as the special guest referee. We hadn't seen him in months after taking time off for knee surgery. He's back in black, a new look, new muscles, a new entrance, and a new lady, the debuting Gorgeous George. But why is he the guest referee? It's never really explained as to why. He just shows up. Did Ric Flair make this decision? Because he is the president after all, president for life. But Savage does have beef with all 4 guys in this match. He's got history with all 4 of them. So again, why is he there? It's just, to what end, I ask you, did this happen? Also, how in the hell are you going to have Michael Buffer showing up for a couple of Nitros between Uncensored and now, but not have him at the pay-per-view? A lot of blows between the 4 of them to start things off here. Sting and DDP work in the ring. Hogan and Flair brawl on the outside. Then the pairs switch places. Hogan with the boot and a leg drop on Flair right away, but Sting has to let go of the Scorpion Deathlock to break the pin. DDP and Sting go back to the outside as Flair works over Hogan's knee, puts him in the figure 4. Page goes for a neck breaker. An attempt was made. DDP then does the figure 4 to Hogan, wrapped around the ring post. Hogan is unable to move after the attack, and he's carried off. Eric Bischoff even shows up looking concerned. And you know what? The whole is this a work? Is this a shoot aspect of WCW? This whole vibe started way before Vince Russo showed up. The match resumes as a triple threat now. DDP sitting in the corner while Sting and Flair do all the work for a bit. Page is kind of working heel now, which feels out of nowhere based on recent booking. He picks his spot, works over Sting a little. DDP reverses a tombstone attempt and hits one of his own. 3-man sleeper. Oh, hell yeah. Jawbreaker breaks it up though. Sting makes a comeback, takes down Flair and DDP. The Scorpion Deathlock broken up again. Flair with the figure 4 on Sting, who's able to Hulk up and grab the ropes, but referee Savage will not break the hold. Instead, Instead, he drags both guys to the center of the ring, then just gets up and drops the elbow onto Flair. So who's he helping there? Page gets back up, kicks Sting's leg out from under his leg, hits the Diamond Cutter, shoulders back, chest out onto Flair to win the match and win the world title for the very first time. I give this main event 3 stars out of 5. It did get a little repetitive at times near the end, but I think there were still some good things between the 3 main combatants that were not really featuring Hogan into this thing. But of course, the very cool moment of DDP winning the World Championship for the first time is what helps elevate this match for me. He's the odd man out in this matchup. Even if you include the referee, he's the only person in this matchup to have never won a World Championship. So for him to kind of get that moment with these legends, with these big names, was hugely validating for DDP. I think he's someone who, you know, I kind of scoff at the word deserve in wrestling at times. I think it's overused, but I think DDP definitely deserved this moment to be the world champion, to get that moment in the sun. Definitely was somebody who worked for it and the people were behind it. He was the people's champion in WCW. He would turn heel after this, which I thought was kind of counterproductive, but I think it was a very cool moment still for DDP to do this. And at the time even, I thought, wow, what a cool moment this was. My grade for WCW Spring Stampede 99 is a B-. Is this the last great WCW pay-per-view? You know, hard for me to say because I don't think I've seen the rest of 99, but I can tell you it's a lot better than anything they did in 2000 or 2001, even though by the end it was starting to get a little better by 01. You know, it's a good show, but I wouldn't call it like a great show. You know, there's a few things that weren't great in the show, but they didn't like detract too much from it. There were some good matches in there. You know, I think it's very emblematic of what WCW was like during this time. The mid-card kills it for the most part. The main event, it's a bit lacking. Those star players are a bit underdeveloped or underperforming in some ways, but the crowd was there for it, which kept the energy of the show going, I think. And like I said, even the bad stuff in this show wasn't horrible per se, just maybe didn't really fit there, I would think. But yeah, still a good amount of stuff to get from this show. So yeah, it's definitely a strong show for WCW, but the last great one, I mean, sure, we'll say that because it was definitely good. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review of Spring Stampede 99. Stay tuned for the next few weeks, folks, on the channel, because the next few topics will be definitely Hulk Hogan-centric, not just the topics of the long-form reviews, but also the next classic pay-per-view review. I was trying to think about, well, what other, like, pay-per-view is really emblematic, or what comes to mind when I think of Hulk Hogan, just like in his purest form. I have to think of something like Starrcade 94, so I'll see you for that in 2 weeks. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.
Bow wow wow, yippee yo, yippee yay, arriba la raza, all